Masonic Sleep, a novella by Valentin Bura. Full text provided for your entertainment and edification. Just too bad the bride's so pretty. Jewish proverb. I cannot say neither that it is 1 meter long, nor that it is not 1 meter long. And that is the standard meter in Paris. Ludwig Wittgenstein. The guy told me I came across as a very thoughtful young man. I was surprised to hear a thing like that. Most of the people in my life that were endowed with the authority of saying something, anything about me, would have said I was an entirely despicable person. So you can imagine that remark came entirely as a surprise. Yet, those dudes kept me in highest esteem. And why wouldn't they? I was the guy that always kept to himself and, most importantly, I kept my mouth shut. Always. No exception. That one was inherently a solo game. Very individualistic. Why show any kindness to anyone? Why spare a tiny cent for anyone? Could I have absolutely and beyond doubt relied on someone else helping out when in need? Would anyone spare $1 for me? So what's the point in exercising kindness? Though those days we were asleep, lodges having been secured and shut down properly, the tracing board instructions having been followed properly and regularly, cops cannot and will never comprehend the extent of our activities. Policemen will never understand philosophy, and they will never understand spirituality. They just don't. What can cops understand? Really now, they're just below average guys doing 9-to-5 jobs. We got them all covered. Plus, many cops these days were our own guys, so we needed not worry too much about them. Not too much. Yet we were in a deep Masonic sleep, our lodges having been broken into, albeit superficially, by those insidious bastards, and our spirituality having been profoundly desecrated. The craft was altogether on a state of dormition. That did upset many of our guys. No easy snacks after hours, you see. No drinks, no fun and games, each to their own from now on, every man for himself. No togetherness, no camaraderie, no socializing, less of the finer things of life. Our guys weren't queuing properly for sweets and desserts. That was our inherent issue, if you're asking me. Everyone had a sweet tooth in the room, no doubt about that particular fact. Yet, they were not queuing. They showed little courtesy towards each other and the higher in rank, and they wanted the best and most attractive piece of cake for themselves only. It was inherently very sad to see things turn out that way. We were supposed to be true brothers, true comrades. We were supposed to cooperate in everything that we did, yet our big egos always got in the way, and we worked quite hard and diligently for everything we eventually enjoyed ourselves. We toiled hard. The state of perfection of our labor would have been obvious to any observer, yet we had to fuck this all up due to the immensity of our egos. We had to ruin everything in that childish manner. Yes, we were officially in Masonic sleep, and that terrible fact was due to not being accustomed to queue properly for our sweets. We must have been raised like spoiled brats. Our parents and old folk must have indulged us too much and too often. Everybody had a particular favorite, you see, and then preferences would collide, almost as sure as night following day. There could have been no room for a decent, civilized protocol of sharing. Everyone wanted their piece right then and right there. Everybody was demanding. Everybody had their own little petty interest in view, and nobody cared about anybody else. Fights would arise, punches and kicks. Spirits would become profoundly mutilated, so to speak. Situations became volatile, and many black eyes would result from this terrible glitch in a system. Yes, that was a glitch in our system. That fact soon became obvious to me. How could that be? I wondered. Everything seemed perfectly smooth and in perfect order in the lodge room. But as soon as we got down in the refectory for dinner and a snack, things got ridiculous to say the least. Literally, things got from the most sublime ideology to the most ridiculous behavior. We were not acting like adults. We were all spoiled brats, spoiled kindergarten children. That would be something like the pigeonhole principle. You see, two adult, grown-up men for the same incredibly attractive piece of cake, with sugar icing and cream on top. Can we both have it? Well, maybe, but I'll be the one to go first, okay? I just need to be the one to go first, because it's me. For fuck's sake, I'm the most important person on this planet Earth. Yet, being well aware of the combinatorotics principles behind this issue, I still did not comprehend how a situation like this one could have occurred. You see, deep, unconditional obedience was something to be inculcated properly in all of our beloved brethren. Yes, diligent labor was important, but obedience was also a mandatory quality in order to progress within the ranks of our craft. That statement is actually in the ritual, well delineated and well emphasized within the ritual of the ceremony of installation. Yet, due to this unavoidable problem relating to deepest desires of human nature, the brethren were filled with animosity towards one another. Suddenly, our system was not a system anymore. We did not have a system, and that was bad. It was bad for the productivity of our labor, it was bad for our end results, and it was bad in general. Imagine that. Unimaginable, right? A fraternity, more antient than the Roman eagle, more reputable than the garter. And the brethren hated each other, and did this in secret. They were all staring at each other with the corner of the eye as soon as the lodge proceedings were over. Human society these days is way too competitive, you see. We just do not relax. Life is fast, and we dwell fine and swell within a philosophy of the microwave oven. Yup, let's all queue for the microwave oven. We'll meet to wait for 10 minutes, but you need to be somewhere else within 5 minutes. Terrible, isn't it? We must remember this very fact. Consider one of our most fundamental tenets of our fraternity. One must always be suitably clothed when attending, apart from keeping a close eye for cowens and intruders. There's a fundamental sharp boundary between interior and exterior, between what one does and how one is essentially perceived by the public eye. One never discloses what one does. One always behaves with the dignity necessary for the lodge office they've been entrusted with. One always acts with self-respect. Yet the brethren could not contain themselves. Their egos bursted with self-love and a fundamental desire for self-gratification. This is uttermost incredible from my own perspective. Our labor was in fundamental need for perfection, and yet we were all acting like nothing much but kindergarten pupils. We'd all have to undergo measurements when being admitted as candidates. The more experienced brethren of the lodge would measure our chests against a sharp instrument, the compass. My first love was a tad bitter, you see. I was 12 and fell in love hopelessly with a beautiful young lady who was 3 years my senior. I did tell her about it, but I couldn't do much. So the hole in my chest would have been quite large, you see. Hence my overall sense of excruciating ambition and persistent need to be on top, to be the best wherever I went and whatever I was doing. Hence the senior brethren had to treat me cautiously. You learn to be cautious in the ceremony of your first degree. That's one of the most basic lessons being passed into you when being admitted as an entered apprentice. A rumor went in the lodge that these old-timers knew quite a lot. Like, for example, they were well aware of a candidate's better half, as in the myth of Aristophanes. And they could and did use this information for the essential benefit of the Masonic craft. Another story went that within the ritual of exaltation, one did get an insight into who they were in a past life. A door of perception into the process of anamnesis. Of course, one wasn't allowed as such to inquire into the Masonic secrets of a superior Masonic degree, but rumors did circulate among the brethren, and those rumors were of a powerful nature and circulating quite fast. As a fact, it wouldn't be inconceivable that the old-timers encouraged the rumors themselves in order to create and maintain a special vibe within lodges. I was admitted to the first degree as a poor candidate in a state of darkness. I was told at the entrance of the lodge that I'm putting my trust in God alone, and I will not be prompted on that one. Then, I was blindfolded with a scarf, cable tow around my neck, and went right in. I wasn't anxious at all, though that might have been the intended effect. I perambulated 3 times, as required, in front of the experienced brethren of the lodge, and then I went in front of the junior warden and senior warden for their inquiries. When tempted to react too quickly at their questions, my attention was drawn to the fact that I should always behave cautiously, and any behavior to the contrary would bring severe repercussions to myself and my brethren, while at the end of the ceremony it was revealed to me that I was to be pretty high in the craft, something like a senior warden or something like that. I don't remember much from those days, but that much I did in fact recollect. I remembered when a senior lodge member drew my attention upon the difference between the attitude of reverence and the sign of fidelity. I never struggled with this aspect myself. I was a believer by then, as officially required from all members. And even through my own dark night of the soul, I did keep my essential respect towards the institution of the church. I wasn't at all punkish or rebellious. I was just a tad unconventional in thinking, and that fact carried with me since the earliest memories I could have recollected. So I did have quite a huge hole in my chest, so the old-timers acted with supreme cautiousness when around me, and everybody seemed to have been prompted when I was around. When waiting for a ceremony to start, I was the one prone to intellectual business. I was making daily progress in Masonic knowledge, as required by all of our rituals. I was studying hard the artifacts and the hidden symbols in the waiting room. Some old Masonic edition Bibles within a huge glass case in the center of the room. The volumes of the sacred law were held with great reverence by the brethren. Photos of various lodge members on the walls, together with weird, highly non-standard regalia displayed on the walls. A map of the city, a rendition painting of the arrival of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon's court. Benches on where to sit or place the Masonic briefcases. The world is what the case is. The story goes, the world is precisely what is inside and within the Masonic case. Nothing more, nothing less. Some of the senior members of our lodge would have objected that was too much of an intellectual sort. They wanted average guys, you see. Guys that would to average sort of work for them, and expected an average kind of remuneration. What would the world come to if all of us were aristocrats? Valid point, innit? Whereabout are you from? The man asked me. I can hear your accent. You aren't West Australian. Where are you from? That man was from a highly superior degree, probably Knight or Priest Templar. I could judge that fact from his regalia and well-displayed insignia. I'm not sure where I am from, kind sir, I replied. I was being a tad cheeky. You mean you aren't quite happy with your country of origin? You feel frustrated with that? He seemed to continue his line of inquiry. It's not that, kind sir. It's just that people come and go from places all the time. So one cannot be sure. I did continue being cheeky. But my native tongue is Romanian, so that's where I was born, I guess. I did settle the conversation quite quickly, as I was getting bored with his curiosity. Quite an interesting fact. He was so adamant to know whether I was frustrated with my place of origin. I guess those cheeky guys were more psychological than expected. Yet I was also a master of that particular game, and ready for any challenges. But it soon became clear Grand Lodge of Western Australia would not accept my Grand Secretary type of inquiry and knowledge and expertise. They would not accept that from anyone who wasn't Australian, or at least English, or Scottish. Yet I was ambitious. That was about the time when our WA Lodge amalgamated with an Irish Lodge, and I went further to join a second lodge of the Scottish Constitution. I liked the tartan regalia, you see. I liked tartans, always did. I was a heretic buff. I was a sucker for heretic. always was. That was just me. So imagine the enthusiasm of getting a tartan of my own. Call me superficial, but that's all that it was. Those days I kept to myself as usual, kept my fucking mouth shut, and spent a year on the bench, watching diligently, learning the ritual, and sometimes delivering charges. Due to my outstandingly exemplary behavior the year after I progressed in office, straight to senior deacon. The dove bearing an olive branch was the precious jewel of my office. That wasn't an easy office. I had to deliver the ceremonies of passing and raising, and that had to be done right. My memory was good though, and exercising it was also a good thing. The evenings in the refectory were quite interesting. There was a Queen and the Craft toast, a toast for the visitors of the lodge, and the Tyler's toast, of course. The food was always outstanding, and those old-timers were quite the gluttons. The food tasted so good I couldn't help myself wondering if it was always of organic provenance. Compared to the rubbish I ingested on a daily basis, that thing was 5 stars. So you can imagine the lodge weeknight was something of a nice entertainment in my otherwise dull and boring type of existence. Another year passed by me, and I was finally made junior warden. That was, officially speaking, the 3rd man in the lodge. A great and well-deserved honor. But that was by name only, as my behavior was still under strict scrutiny, and I did not have much of a say with anything relating to the Constitution or the organization of the lodge. Still, the ritual had to be learned by heart, and replies had to be given during the ceremonies. The evening I was made a junior warden, I had to deliver my first visitor's toast, and I recited a poem by William Blake that made quite an impression. An overall successful evening, I must say. Yet, suddenly and unforeseen, my academic duties dictated that I had to move to the United Kingdom on a totally different research project and the one I was involved in at the University of Western Australia. So, I had to say goodbye to my good friends and go on with my professional activities. I kind of recollect now seeing a delphinium on somebody's lapel once. I asked him what it was, as I never saw it before, and it looked simply gorgeous. He didn't tell me to mind my own business. He said it was something to show various people. Then I thought to myself, I definitely need one of those beautiful flowers on my tuxedo too. This is interesting to me. How smart people can be quite stupid very often. As Albert Einstein said once, try something new and you will eventually look and feel stupid. Me, a smart guy, a smart person. What was I doing there, in a state of being half asleep? I was literally sleepwalking around these snakes and tarantulas, pretending I was reciting theater, or something mild like that. A social club. Nothing more, nothing less. Something interesting to do. Something exciting. An environment in which I should spend my evenings. I finally kind of understood when I visited the Grand Lodge of Spain. I kind of got it. Not entirely, but it did make me think. The man was speaking Spanish. My wife would translate. We went downstairs in the basement. A large dining table and a photo of King Felipe. The man told me to enter the small cubicle. He'd wait outside with my wife. I went in. The tiny room was dark. In the center, a table with a small human skull on it. I shrieked in pure terror and ran outside. When departing, the man gave me the entered apprentice handshake. And that's about all. Memories. These are only memories of a distant, forgotten past these days. These days, I'm spending all of my time locked in my room. No money to go out, no money to watch over my health, no money to entertain. Just a mild type of pastime that could be essentially characterized as fucking around. And, in the end, a tiny glitter of mild hope for the future, our own collective, fraternal future. I was a highwayman. Along the coach roads I did ride, with sword and pistol by my side. Many a young maid lost her bubbles to my trade. Many a soldier shed his lifeblood on my blade. The bastards hung me in the spring of '25. But I'm still alive,